morning. Hey, Brew Crew. Welcome to another Brew and Activate. We are finally back in the studio in the comforts of all the computer controls and everything else. So feeling a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, good morning to everybody. It looks like we got a few folks there in the chat. Good morning, folks. Yeah, welcome to Brew and Activate. I'm Eric, N1JUR, and I'm with my illustrious co-host.
I'm Shannon, KC1OHT.
And welcome to another Brew and Activate. I got a lot to dive in today. Is we're going to get into some really cool stuff. If you're, into POTA, then this is the spot you want to be at. We are going to, as always, with every Brew and Activate, explore, analyze, reconstruct, deconstruct, everything in between, everything about POTA, parks on the air. So maybe you're an activator, maybe you're a chaser, a hunter, or you're just curious about, the ham radio hobby and you happen to catch us on this live stream, then you come to the right place. So as we like to say every week, we're going to dive into a different topic around POTA. And that's the nice part about POTA. There's plenty of topics out there to discuss. And sometimes we'll get into some of the, we'll say, not so nice parts about POTA, some, great stories, some great tips and tricks, but all of it's going to be covered. And we'll hopefully, by the time you walk away from this, be able to get some good information if you're looking to get out there and start doing POTA. Yeah, we, both Shannon and I love to share everything about POTA. We are POTA nuts, I guess is the best way to describe what we'd like to do. So with that, let's just get into, grab your favorite brewer tea, get comfy, and we're going to dive right into it. So let's just say hello to a few folks there in the chat just before. Oh, Dave, good to see you this morning. We see Sean and Lee Butler. Good morning, guys. And let me see. Ted, good to see you there. I know you've been super excited to talk about this topic, so we're looking forward to getting into it. And yes, it is a crisp autumn day here in New England. I can't tell you, I'm a little cool here. The air conditioner is still in, so I've got to pull those out still. Yeah, with that, we'll have to maybe put a sweater on if things don't start to warm up here today. So how are you doing this morning, Shannon?
I am also cold. I have swapped the iced coffee for a hot tea. So I'll probably be enjoying that after my Monster energy drink. Not sponsored, but Monster, if you want to sponsor me, here I am.
There you go. And any tea companies out there too. You can't leave them out.
Oh yeah, PG Tips, straight from Britain. So
ooh, good stuff. So that's the real proper tea.
Well, no, that's like the working man's tea, but
okay, you could have passed it off that way, and I would totally accepted it either way. So it's all good. All right. Well, as we always like to do this before we start into today's topic, which is going to be a good one. It's on winter activations. We're going to dive into our POTA minute. So with that, let's go. Well, with our POTA minute here, wow, they made us really small here. Let me go back and fix this really quick here because I think we need to have better, Oh, there we go. Much better. Now we actually look like we're big. There we go. Fighting it. Okay, so now that we got that all squared away, so this is the POTA minute like we get into every week. We like to talk about maybe a small topic in a minute or less related to POTA or Parks on the Air here. And hopefully these tips, tricks, or just a bit of information is good enough to be able to, equip you to be able to get, out there doing stuff or part of POTA in general there. So let's make sure we get the chats here. All right. So this week's POTA minute. So if you are a POTA activator, maybe you've been in the hobby for a little bit, maybe this is the first time you just started out into it. This is coming up in October is Support Your Parks Weekend. This is the fall iteration. I think they do this, 3 times a year? Is it 3 times or 4 times a year? 4 times a year. So yeah, for every season. So this is the fall season. So October, 18th and 19th is Support Your Parks weekend. So let's kind of frame it out here. Those that might not know what SYP is, for short, for those that are in the know, SYP is basically a weekend where it's sort of like our field day for parks on the air. And so everybody gets out, out to a park. Hunters are super excited. The airwaves are alive and well with contacts for every mode and every band. And so it's a great opportunity to maybe, introduce new hams to parks on the air. Those that, sometimes get together do huge meetups. And so I'm going to throw it out there. Before we kind of do that, Shannon, you got any plans for SYP at all?
I didn't have any specific plans, no.
None?
I Listen, did we not learn this from last week's show? I don't go out with goals and plans and,
True.
the best laid plans of mice and men, Eric.
Yeah, I've heard that story before. It caused fire, commotion, and destruction. But anyway, all good there. So, yeah, I think for me, I know at least my local club here in New Hampshire, we are going to be doing a meetup. I don't know all the details because I've kind of been out of the loop a little bit, but we try to every year with our club, or not every year, at least the spring and fall seasons, get together and do a meetup. And so, what's that look like for a lot of people? Well, we just kind of pick a park. We usually get together at, elected time, and people bring their gear, set it all up, and we start to do, support your parks in the air. And so the funny part with that is it's kind of an interesting kind of, scenario, because people bring their gear. Some people like to talk about stuff, maybe show their new setups off. Some people are diehard activators. They'll actually go off and they'll set up on their own. Or, if we're, so brave enough that a few people will actually kind of set up a, come see, and touch and feel station. So they, can get their hands on maybe doing their first CW activation, or, learning how to get, on the air for sideband, or learning FT8. I mean, that's the nice part about it, is that there's no said limits. You can get out there and do anything. And so for someone new, maybe in POTA or wants to get into POTA, that's a perfect place to go do it. I would say for those that are, well seasoned, let me throw this out to you. I want to throw a challenge out because I like doing this. If you have not been out or able to get out into a Support Your Parks weekend, this weekend might be a good, or this coming weekend, maybe, or 2 weekends from now, I should say, if I'm looking at my calendar correctly, might be a good weekend. We might actually get some good warm weather. And so maybe you should get out and try something. And so my challenge to you is, try a different mode, try a different band, try, maybe gigahertz. We're looking at 2 meter, 440, that type of stuff. Activate maybe a multi-parks, try a couple different parks in a day. So, set Saturday as a side in your schedule and go out and try maybe a 3-fur, a 2-fur if you can find them, or even bigger. Or, heck, if you're so ambitious, maybe try your first Rove. That would be kind of cool, because I guarantee you get out there, you won't lack in any need for contacts. You will be able to achieve that very quickly. And so that might be your best bet to, achieving your maybe first 4-park Rove, 5-park Rove, whatever the number you're shooting for. That might be a benefit to you and well worth the effort. So, yeah, hopefully that encourages you. Heck, and if in the chat, if you want to leave a few comments there, let us know if you guys are planning on getting out there and doing SYP. And Mike, yes, you're down with me. So you got your SYP. This sounds like another T-shirt in the mix there, my friend. So get on it. Yep. Oh, nice. Dave, I would totally love to see 72 come this way just one more time. I remember last year, actually, it was, I think, shortly after Support Your Parks weekend, Todd and I had a Friday that we got out and did a 7-park Rove, and it was like 85. And it must have been shortly after Halloween or just before Halloween, because there was a lady sitting on the beach suntanning in her, I think it was a witch's costume at that point. I don't know how she was getting sun or surviving, but, that's all we saw when we were activating out on the coast. So it was well worth it and definitely fun. So, All right, so cool. So that is the POTA minute. So let's go back to our normal view here. All right, just catching up a little bit more in the chat. This is great to see you guys. Super busy, love it. This is really good to see all you guys here in the chat. But so with that, before we kind of do that, let's kind of just do a recap. Shannon, how I know you've been pretty active doing some activations there. I've been lacking, but do tell what's been your POTA activation schedule this past week or so.
Yeah, so I did two POTA activations this week. I went out on Monday and Tuesday since, speaking of the cold, those were like the last two warm days that we were going to get. So I said to myself, I better take advantage and get out there while I can because I'm not going to want to get out there when it's cold going into the show topic here. But I went to Willowdale State Forest in Ipswich, which is park number, gosh, I don't even know, 4755, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Set up my Wolf River coil with the Faraday cloth ground plane and my FT 710. And, the band conditions were really, really good those first 2 days. I mostly operated on 10 and 15 on Monday, and then I think Tuesday I did 15, 20, and 17. And I
Wow.
got, like, I don't know, 40 or 50 contacts, each day. And tons of DX into Europe, especially Monday. I was getting tons and tons of United Kingdom, which I love. My people.
Oh, very cool. I'm gonna admit, I have to confess, I got too wrapped up in too much work, and didn't get a chance to get out and activate. Although I have a lot of antenna reviews that I want to do and test out, so that was kind of one of my motivators, but just didn't motivate me enough. So I did, though. I have to say, the wife and I last Sunday, had broken away to go off to our favorite, second favorite place, which is Maine. And, while she was kind of store shopping and stuff like that, of course, I fired up the HF in the truck. And I think I made quite a few DX contacts just from the parking lot off the ATAS. I was super excited to, just hunt the bands. 20 was a little noisy over that weekend, but not anything that you couldn't overcome. And it was fun. I was making HF contacts right from the comfort of the truck, and that's kind of why I set that truck up that way, so I could just have the convenience of firing it up and getting on the air. And my ATAS for the win, as always. That thing has never disappointed me, never failed to make a good contact. So yeah, I got some HF in at least, so that was a plus there, but no POTA.
Well, those who can't activate hunt, right?
True. That's a good point. It sounds like a t-shirt. Those who can't activate hunt. There we go. Anybody want to get on the bandwagon with that one?
Hey, right. I'd wear it.
Well, yeah, I was told that we have too many shirts here in the Lift Rain Ham storefront, so I might have to maybe squeeze that in at a different level. But we'll have to workshop that one a little bit. Okay, well, so with that, we've got a lot to kind of discuss and talk about today, because it is definitely one of those, we'll say, telltale signs, at least here in New England, that old man Winter is hanging out there in the background and starting to rear his ugly head. And we are going to be seeing, I wouldn't say snow, hopefully as early as October, but definitely the cold is starting to come and settle in. And so, it kind of inspired us, I think, from last week when we did our live stream at Nearfest, which it was 70 degrees there, which is kind of very deceiving when we were there. I mean, I bundled for, cold weather, it was 30, 40 degrees early in that morning. But yeah, I was like literally peeling layers off that day. And so I felt, hey, this might be a good topic, because we kind of alluded to it about, maybe preparing for the winter months when it came to activation. So we're going to kind of chit chat about that and dive into kind of the nuts and bolts. So we're curious to see, where you guys stand, what you guys do in your neck of the woods. when it comes to activating, in winter months and cold weather situations. I know obviously in Texas it does get cold. You don't see snow so much like we do up here in the Northeast. But yeah, there's still bitter cold winters. We all suffer from it in some form or fashion. And so, yeah, we're gonna kind of get into that. Talk a little bit about our setups, what you can do to maybe outfit your vehicles for cold winter activations, and discuss some of the kind of things that we've learned along the way, and hopefully steer you away from the mistakes that we suffered in our time of learning and growing with POTA. So yeah, with that, we got a couple of people here. Let's see. Yeah, Ted, you grew up in Chicago area. Yeah, I could say that's heavy winds too, on top of cold weather is never fun. And it is something you definitely got to kind of challenge yourself with a little bit when it comes to adjusting to how your activation normally would be when you're outside to being in, your comforts of your vehicle, or maybe, in a enclosed shelter or whatever. So yeah, let's start somewhere. And so with that, you know, Shannon, we'll start with you, since I know, you probably have a lot more activations in your belt than maybe I do at this current time. But when it comes to winter, like what's your number one, concern when you're obviously starting to your activations, or we should back that up. Do you do winter activations consistently or at all?
I don't know if I would say consistently. I have done winter activations,
Mhm.
but pretty much just staying in the car.
Okay.
So
So
activating from the car with antennas on the car.
now, are you you've never braved actually setting up on a picnic bench in a cold, kind of scenario at all? That's never, been on your top 5, top 10?
Yeah, no, I don't like the
Okay.
cold.
I can understand that. Being a January baby myself, it's like, yeah, I was born in the middle of it. I don't want to have to be a witness to it, in an activity I love doing. So yeah, for me, winter activations, I learned very early on when I started doing POTA that they can be challenging in and of their own, and challenging both on an equipment setup, antenna setup, and then the comfort, level of the whole entire activation. I I learned that no matter how much I tried to stay within the car, that I was always lacking some way to stay warm, and my fingers were always at the fingertips were always frozen. The radio was happy because it was in nice frozen conditions and could handle and operate just fine. But I started my activations off of a tri-mag mount on the top of the truck with ham sticks. And anybody who's had ham sticks knows that ham sticks are one of those things that people love to hate sometimes, because if you don't know how to tune them well, you can't tune them well. And if you're in cold conditions trying to tune them, they take a little bit of time to be able to get your head around them. So I learned very early on that this wasn't going to be the way I was going to continue to do my winter activations, and really wanted to continue to do them, because I think when I started into POTA, the seasons were cold, but they weren't like, we didn't have like 5 feet of snow on the ground. So it was like, it was okay to be able to get out and set up an antenna, even though it was cold and bundled up, and then running the coax through the window kind of thing in the car and stuff like that. But I wanted something different. And so, yeah, we'll get into a little bit of that, and what that might look like, because I know Shannon's got a similar setup to what I run in my car and in the truck. And I'm curious to see, how she got to that evolution. I know she is a buy once, cry once person, but there must have been some steps along the way to learn that, to get to that point. So, let's kind of start somewhere. So, in your mind, let's focus. Trying to think of where we want to take this. I don't know, maybe you can kind of lead, this, because we can kind of talk about the radios, we can talk about the setups in the vehicles, but let's start. And I guess maybe because you already said that you don't do outside activations, let's do a little bit of the outside activation. So I like to say that at this point, like from now where we are today, present, till about the end of October is where I pretty much wrap up doing outdoor activations. You kind of agree that same cycle, or you go a little further into November for yourself?
I mean, it all depends, right? It's like if we got some day where it was a little bit warmer, then, I might still do an outside activation. And I mean, we're sitting here talking, because we're in New England, right? But
Yep.
I mean, people down south in Florida, Texas, I mean, they could potentially do year-round outdoor activations, right?
Yeah, that cycle doesn't change much for them. So I guess they're kind of out of the scenario because they don't have to deal with the actual rain and freezing snow and sleet and all of those things. I mean, they may have it. I know Georgia's had, some of their fair share of, states shutting down when they get an eighth of an inch of snow on the ground kind of thing. And, Texas has literally gone in, into their, crazy modes when roads, ice up and stuff like that. So, they all have their own scenarios, but I think from a standpoint of like in my mind, I always kind of like just consider the end of October, first week in November, the kind of cutoff date where I'm thinking I need to start planning or I need to say, let's flip the switch and start thinking about more inside vehicle activations or inside of a building or inside of a kind of enclosed shelter. So for me, when I'm out, in the middle of November timeframe, if we haven't had our first snowfall already, I think I'm looking for, locations that have full shelters in them. And so like, there's a couple of parks, that I go to and man, I should have wrote these down, that are in, the New Hampshire area that, have a couple of enclosed shelters. And we're talking like bivouac kind of shelter. So they have three sides with an open front, just enough to kind of keep you out of the wind in those types of scenarios. I have even seen a few activators, go to the end lengths of, bringing ice shelters with them. I don't know if you've seen a few of those folks, and I don't know whether or not, to what level that really, adds to the complexity of an activation, but there are a few that do that. So I'll go out, I'll set up, an example, if I'm setting up in like an enclosed shelter or, a half open shelter, a lot of times, I will just, keep my activation equipment pretty simple. So, 891 battery, resonant type antenna, and, the longest piece of coax I physically can bring with me to keep my antenna as far as away from me. So I don't have to, worry about, any of the RFI issues or anything like that. And most of the time I've got, a few things in my bag that I kind of keep with me. Now, I don't know if you've had changed your POTA bag around a little bit, but in my winter setup, and one of the big things that I keep with me are the hand warmer stuff. You ever use those?
Yeah, I tried the hot hands before.
Mhm. I
They're
have
okay.
I have a set of gloves actually that are the fingerless gloves because a lot of I'm touching a tablet or whatever, and so I need obviously the finger to be able to hit. But I have the gloves I bought actually have like inserts for the hot hands kind of thing. So the nice part about it is I don't have to like hold on to them and put them down and let them cold. So I kind of stay warm with my fingers, and that always makes my activation a little bit more, we'll say pleasant, because I may have not alluded to the beginning, but I am a man of comfort. When I refuse to operate on, with a hacksaw and a nail kind of on an old egg crate. That's just not my thing when it comes to, park activations. And so I always try to tell that when I go with a lot of people that I'm going to go with comfort. So like, even like the chairs that I'll use, a lot of them will have extra, lining. So like my POTA chair, that's one that I have, has a fleece lining on the inside, so it adds an extra layer of kind of like, warmth. Obviously I've got light, jackets and that type of stuff depending on the weather and the layers. But I think from a standpoint, if I'm operating outdoors, I'm thinking everything about comfort. So, stopping at Dunkies to grab the, extra large coffee, so I have that to keep warm. The hand warmers, extra layers, the fleeces, that type of stuff. And that for most of the time, if the weather is decent, like it's just chilly, in the low 30s, that'll work perfectly fine. So your scenario. So I'm setting up a woofer recoil, and that's kind of, the configuration on the 891. So that's it kind of for me for outdoors. That's where I stop. And so when the weather starts to get colder and things start to really get like to the point of like we're seeing ice on, windshields in the morning and yeah, the winds start to howl and whip. Let's move towards the inside of the vehicle. So what was your kind of first, we'll say, thought process when you were thinking, okay, I'm going to move to the inside of the vehicle? Were you running, what was your setup like before you started setting up the 891 and everything?
Uh, the triple mag mount, on top of the car with the 17-foot whip. Or the Hustler resonator coils too. I kinda switch back and forth between the 2, although with the G90, I use those Hustlers a lot
Yeah.
more, um, because I have this, triple mast, right, that I can put 3 of those Hustler resonator coils on, and I usually would put the 10, the 15, and the 20, and the G90 would actually be able to tune 12 and 17 from
Mhm.
that.
Right.
So, I would be able to get 4 bands, or 5 bands without even having to ever get out of my car once I set that up.
Okay. So you were running, so did you run the G90? Like, what was your operating position look like? Did you have the G90 permanently mounted in the car? Was it just kind of like dash mounted? What was that,
No.
how,
No,
wires
I just
everywhere kind of thing?
No, I would just, decide whatever day I was gonna go out and do a POTA activation. And the G90, I mean, because it's so small, it fits in like a hiking backpack, right? So
Right.
that's sort of like my go bag. I just always have that G90 in a bag, bring a 20 amp hour battery. The antennas I always kept in the car. Didn't have to bring those in and out, but just,
Mhm.
either set the G90 up kind of on the dashboard or on the passenger seat next to me, and, the battery down on the floor, whatever. Yeah, a little bit wires everywhere, but
Okay. Because my initial setup when I first moved to the vehicle was 891 on the dash, wires running literally through back windows for the antennas, and the battery sat up on the dash because it was small enough to get it. So the hardest, I think, part for me not wasn't so much the way the radio mounted and how I got it all hooked up, but just trying to find a comfortable place to log. I mean, obviously I've got a nice center console that I could plop a laptop on, but 9 times out of 10, I feel like I really didn't have a great way to be able to, like, sit comfortably in the truck, and then log. So, we'll touch on some of the changes I did with the logging in a bit, but, radio-wise, I got tired of the cables because I don't know about you with, you obviously had your G90 in a bag. My 891 was up in the dash, and I had, obviously the mic would come through, off the dash. I can't tell you how many times when I reached in the back or whatever, I would do the proverbial yank it off the dash and it would come flying off the dash and crashing down. And I think after the third time doing that, I was like, I need something more permanent. I need to be able to, like, not have to like spend so much of my time trying to, get wires set up that I could just easily, turn and flip a switch and go. And we'll get into the official, ATAS and 891 discussion in a bit, but I think most of my antennas, at least when I set up, were yours mounted to the car, or did you have them mounted, externally somewhere else?
did I have what
Your
mounted?
your antennas, like, so with your Hustler and everything else, that was all off like the bumper mount and that type of stuff, or
No, it was on the triple mag mount. So that MFJ triple mag mount has a 3/8 screw.
oh right,
So,
yes,
I could put either the 17-foot whip in there or the triple mast for the Hustlers.
got it. Okay, and so rooftop mount kind of thing. I
Yes.
I did that with the ham sticks and the tri mount. And like I learned very quickly, ham sticks and we don't see eye to eye, so I got rid of them very fast. And so most of my setups were probably with Wolf River coils, outside the vehicle, in a ground scenario. My struggle with the Wolf River coil was I had to carry around like a 3 pound, sandbag, because when the ground freezes here in New England, you can't put anything in the ground to be able to hold that thing down. And when the wind picks up on a 17-foot whip, it'll knock you, like you'll be in the middle of a QSO, and if you're not watching the antenna, all of a sudden you'll be like, where did they go? They disappeared, and all of a sudden the band just goes flat because the antenna literally is flat on the ground, and then you have to run back out and do the whole antenna retune kind of dance to make it all work. So I was carrying around for a while in the back, a small little 3-pound sandbag so I could keep the mast and everything, on the ground. And there were a couple of activations. It was pretty windy out, and I'm sitting there and watching our truck, watching the whip kind of go bounce back and forth. And I'm like, at any little lateral ways, that whip's going to come flying at the vehicle or, take somebody out. But that's the nice part about in winter season. There's barely anybody at any of these parks, so you don't have to worry about injuring people or people stepping on your radials or any of that nature because they're just not, they're there and in the way. So it was good there. So what did you like? So kind of touch on antennas because I think that's going to be a big area where kind of talk about it. Did you feel like you needed, like, were you getting enough value out of that Hustler and the setup you had, or was it just kind of there to get you on the air?
Well, I mean, you know, if you look back in my log, pretty much all of my best DX contacts were using that setup. So people like to kind of, poo-poo on those Hustler resonator coils, but like I mean, I was very easily getting into, Europe on 20 watts and, a coil antenna.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I'm also activating from, the Lynshore Drive
Yeah.
beach. So, you have that saltwater ground plane right there. So that
Uh-huh.
was definitely, conditions were helping there.
You forgot to put
But
the little asterisk by that whole statement, but yeah.
But, as far as value, like, I mean, if you wanna talk monetary value, I somebody sold me that entire set, right, for, like, $40.
Wow.
It was, somebody from the Great Hill Gang down in Weymouth, and it was when I was, like, a brand new ham, and I was like, "How can I say no to this?" So, I bought the triple mast and all the coils from them, and for $40. I didn't even use them for the longest time, until, like a couple years later, I discovered POTA. And then
Mhm.
I was like, okay, well, this is perfect. I can just put this on top of my car and I don't have to ask my husband to try to like throw a wire in the tree in the woods for me. And, like I can go out and do this by myself. So
Okay.
I
All
would
right. Well,
say like the cost to contact ratio on those
you got your
Hustler
value.
coils is very high.
Okay. Yeah, I can't say that I felt I got enough out of my ham stick purchases. And I bought ham sticks from 10 all the way up to 40. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make these work. And, if you go to a ham fest and you're brand new ham, the first thing you're going to look at and go is the ham sticks. And some ham is going to magically just say, hey, you should get yourself some, if you don't have them, with the kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's see how good, they do with, a ham stick kind of thing. Because everybody knows that you like, as I alluded to earlier, you can love to hate them. They sometimes work phenomenally, and I know there are actually activators that we've talked about on Live Free and Ham and stuff like that are, in the top 10 of POTA activations and contacts that, they solely use ham sticks. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have the desire to go back to them, but, they did serve the purpose. They got me kind of at least to a better understanding and education of, what works for me and what is best suited for my scenario. But I don't think I would, say that there was enough value in your, math lesson there because there's no gains for it. I ended up giving them away to somebody else. So hopefully they got some better value out of it. But yeah, they always gave me trouble. So I quickly switched from that to more of a vertical coil, Wolf River coil. And I can say I probably say I haven't looked back. I love wire antennas, and wire antennas are great, especially in spring and summer. But like you said, Jen, and I'm not throwing anything in a tree in the middle of winter, and and maybe I'll try it. Like this is something I should maybe put on my bucket list for 2026 in the winter season to try at least once. But yeah, it just it doesn't appease me or provide me a big enough appetite to want to try it. So I've always been a vertical lover, love vertical antennas, and whether you use something as simply as a straight vertical whip or something like the Wolf of Recoil where you can adjust for multiple bands, I think you'll be better off at least setting up in a kind of a cold winter scenario to get you on the bands quick and make pretty good contacts. I mean, those antennas do very well. I've had a lot of great contacts, using them, in DX and stuff like that. And you can outfit them to even make them more, improve better performance wise too, as well. So interesting. Okay. So yeah. So you started there, and then when was the leap? Like, did you have a interim middle ground before you decided to just go 891 and ATAS in the car, or like what was the, impetus to make that jump for you?
Well, I started out with, a 2 meter, 70 centimeter in the car. And I always sort of wanted HF in the car because I was like, okay, well, maybe I can hunt POTA parks while I'm sitting in the school parking lot waiting for Miles to get out of school. So, but I also like while I'm doing that, I don't want to stick, a 17-foot whip on top of my car because then I might look a little weird.
A
Not that,
little, just a
I
little.
mean, my car looks a little weird now with all the antennas permanently mounted on it. So, I just have to relegate myself that I'm the weird mom and, Miles has the weird mom. But
Now, yeah, but like you have two antennas on your car, correct? Like you have a VHF, UHF, and the ATAS, right?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's not like a lot of the other cars that I've seen here around New England that have 14 like VHF, UHF all drilled through the top of their car. Like that is like taking the nth degree. Most people won't pick up on an antenna unless you're a ham or you're in the radio business and you'll be like, oh, what's that kind of thing? The ATAS is
Oh,
ATAS is
no.
pretty slick. It's nice.
My the antennas, have you seen my Subaru? It's
I
very
have.
noticeable. It does not look like anyone else's car in the school parking lot. Plus, now I have my ham study sticker, my ham sticker. I have a ham radio license plate. Like I stand
Okay.
out. What can I
You're
say?
wearing the geek badge. Yeah, got it.
Yes, exactly. Let
Proud.
your geek flag
Freak
fly, I say.
fly. Yeah. Oh,
But
I'm with you.
but yeah, so that was sort of where it started, was that I like wanted to maybe hunt POTA parks while I was waiting for Miles to get out of school. Cause if there's any moms or dads in the chat that have to make the school pickup, if you don't get there like half an hour early, you're not getting a good parking spot.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
but I have to say, like, I don't even really use the HF antennas, and the radio in the car. Like, I barely use the 891 and the ATOS, but that's my own fault because I still have to work on that, bonding and grounding thing.
Mhm.
It's not receiving signals that great. So,
Huh. Well, so my, I guess, challenge to you then is depending on where you have your ATAS mounted will make the big difference. Bonding and grounding on my truck didn't give me any more added advantage. The only thing that really gave me added advantage was the fact that the radio was directly tied into the electrical system, not into the electrical panel, but directly to the battery. But I'd say the noise blanker was the only thing that really made like that whole scenario work well, because my truck has got noisy fuel pumps and noisy alternator, nothing that I can replace because that's just a bad design. But that has actually saved my bacon a lot more. So you might find that if you flip that noise blanker on, you can at least get some benefit out of, at least some good contacts for sure. I mean, you won't be chasing like the guys that are weak signal, but all in all, you'll at least, have some fun, playing HF in the parking lot. All right. So let's talk a little bit further here. So we talked a little bit about gear. I mean, obviously we can go to the nth degree here about what we use, but I think most of the consensus is, from my standpoint, is that whatever gear you have that you use outdoors already, going to be the same stuff you're going to use when you're in the winter scenario. The only difference would be just how you bag it up, how you kind of package it together, on two levels. One, how quickly, it's easy for you to deploy because, you're in a winter scenario. So whether you're still doing outdoors or you're in your vehicle, like Shannon mentioned, you want some fast, quick way that you can take it out of a bag, set it up, get it plugged in and go. And so whether that gets you to the end result, like for Shannon and I, where you have it permanently mounted and you have an HF set up in your vehicle, or you're still carrying around your 891 in a bag, kind of come up with a way that gives you the fastest way to be able to get it mounted. And so what I'll throw into that mix is like visualize. And so like I, for a long time, sat in my car and, whether I was waiting for the wife at work, I'd be like, oh, well, will my HF gear look good here? What's is better served that the microphone run through this, routing scenario. Kind of visualize how you do your layout. And do this before you get into the winter months because, you don't want to set yourself up into a place that, you're trying to figure it out while you're doing it because it's just going to make it that more challenging. So, but, visualize, is it better to put the battery up here? Or are you thinking about like maybe building yourself a battery box like K-Murder does? I built one that sits behind the back seat and you can just plug your radio in there and you can leave that in the back of the car. For when, you want to use it for portable operations, or you can take it out, and charge it at home. And then figure out where your radio is best placed. And then once you do that, figure out where you're going to set up logging. If you're like Shannon, obviously you log via paper. I'm a laptop, all technology. See, no. No. I have doctor's handwriting. Why do you think I type 50 words a minute? Figure out what best scenario works. And so like things like, you might not be thinking of, like you ever see those trays that attach to steering wheels, for laptops. Those types of things are important for, the comfort, but being able to place your keyboard, your tablet, your laptop, whatever be the case, or even your writing, documents, that will save yourself a lot of neck pain, but more so, a lot of having to twist to use your center console to write on, or whatever be the case if you don't have something, built in your car for that type of thing. So think all of that out first before you go out and buy stuff or try to incorporate your gear in. And then once you've got it kind of laid out, test it out in your driveway. Don't try to activate, just try to go through the whole scenario, plugging it in, setting it all up, because you might find like little shortcuts you can set up, like, like I said, putting that battery in the back, running cables, pre-wiring kind of connectors with power poles on them so your radio can easily be quickly plugged in and that type of stuff. All with the idea that, don't fuss with your winter activations to the point that you're spending more time setting up than you are activating, because it's cold already. And once you finally, build up a sweat because you're trying to maneuver cables and plug things in and, get in and out of the car to set your antennas up, by the time you get back in the car, you're going to start, your windows are going to start to fog up faster because you're just, you built up that little, energy in the sweat. So you're, taking layers off. And you don't want to set yourself up with having to turn the car back on to be able to cool things. And you're playing the heat and cold game all in, on and on. So plan that stuff out in advance, have the cables ready, think about, the interior layout and how you're going to operate. Once you got that done, I think the next step is the next logical step. Okay, well, what are you going to do about antennas? And we had some really good conversations over on the Discord there. Ted and a few others contributed. And so if you aren't part of our Discord, real quick, I'm going to do a little quick plug here. You can head over to our Discord at turn that off. And check out, it's actually, I should change that. It's no longer Sunday live streams, just Brew and Activate. And we've been having a chit chat over there about winter setups. And we're going to continue to kind of talk a little bit about that. But yeah, so the next part that, kind of was brought up on that chat was, okay, antennas. And, Ted threw out the caveat, okay, anything except an ATAS. Like, what would you suggest? What would you recommend? Well, there are a couple of kind of different things you can think in your setup that you may want to do. Like, I mean, Shannon, you obviously had the tri-mount on top of your roof. I ran the Tri-Mount for a while, and that's the MFJ. It's no longer made by MFJ. Actually, I don't think you can get it anymore, or maybe somebody else has picked it up. I'm not sure. But if everybody remembers it, it's a big giant 3 magnets that literally would, if you if you pulled it off the wrong way, you left marks on top of your roof from the paint chips. So just learn that, that thing will do a little damage because it's a pretty strong antenna mount. But if you don't go that route, then, think about other scenarios. So let's kind of hash this out a little bit. So from a standpoint of your vehicle, say like you got a Subaru like Shannon does. Well, she's got probably a roof rack, right? Yes, no.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking. Yes. Sorry, yes.
It has like the 2 little rails. Is that
Okay.
a roof rack? I don't know.
Yeah, that's close enough. I mean, in essence, there's something to mount, or what they call a pseudo luggage rack, which nobody ever uses. There might be some scenario where you can use like a bench clamp, or if you're so inclined, a lot of those rail mounts have like the rail systems. And I know things like Diamond and other Comets, they have all of those mounts where you can actually affix a 3/8/24 kind of CB truck mount to that mount. And then you can run a coax line and leave that with like a cap on the end of it. So you don't have to be so conspicuous of running an antenna all the time, but set it up with the idea that you're creating these kind of attachment points in advance, way before it gets cold, way before your vehicle is like seeing snow and sleet and rain or whatever, your regular weather provides you. And, do it where you're running the cable inside. You don't have to do it something permanent because in essence, you're going to be operating, in the moment, but think about mounts. So like I would suggest, so like in Ted's scenario, I would probably say if you got a luggage rack, start there, put like a CB type mount affixed to the top of that. And you can, use, and actually Sean said lip mount would be perfect. And you can start with the telescopic whip. Shannon alluded to that with her activations when she does them, that she sometimes even doesn't use the coil. I mean, I've never used the coil when I want to do 10 and 20. You can put a 17-foot whip on the top of your car, and you can use the car as a ground plane. It's perfectly fine. It'll work in probably most of 90% of the scenarios that you have out there, and it'll get you on the air, and you're only adjusting that whip. And that's the nice part about it, is that whip is very simple for you to be able to get into a band scenario. And you could probably, on your whip, you've been able to do 10, 15, maybe 17?
Oh, yeah, you can do anything from 6 meters when it's collapsed all the way down to 20 meters when you have it, all the way extended.
Okay. And then if you go up to the 25-foot whip, you could probably get 40 in there, and probably get away with that a little bit. I mean, it might be a little high SWR, but you might be able to definitely, and that's a very large whip on top of a roof. But, you can definitely set that up, and you keep that whip in the back of your trunk, and not have to worry about it getting damaged or anything like that. If you want to step the game up a little bit, you could probably get yourself like a Wolf River coil and use that same mount in the top of your rack, and you can affix your antenna there from there, so you can play in the 40 and in a below. And so there's those kind of scenarios. Now that's the simplest kind of way I'd say you could get yourself going initially. But if say like you want to get into something a little bit more like the wire kind of scenarios, one of the things I would say is that I'm maybe going to test this year is my bumper mount. So I went out and bought off of Amazon the hitch mount off the back of the truck. It's like the little L bracket you could put the mast in. And I've run it in fair weather conditions relatively easy. And as long as my wire antenna is tuned up, I can put up that mast pretty quickly, get it affixed to the top. Now, I haven't done it in high winds. I haven't done it in, colder scenarios. So I don't know how the fiberglass 10-meter mast is going to, stay together well. But I assume it's a DX Commander mast, so it should be able to withstand it. It stood winter months in the backyard for, 4 years straight before I took it down. So I think it can handle that. And so that may be another option, is getting yourself a bumper kind of hitch mount if you do have a hitch mount. To be able to put a mast up if you're a wire person specifically. And you can run that wire, in any which direction, because put it this way, if you're operating here in New England, a lot of the parks are pretty vacant, in the winter months. So setting up, a mast and anchoring it. Just make sure that, when you plan for that type of stuff, think about long coax. Like your 25-foot coax ain't going to cut it. That's going to keep you outside the truck. So think 50, 75 foot. That way you have a little extra run to go into the vehicle. And if you don't mind doing, per se, projects, and putting holes in your vehicle, think about maybe coming up with a way to, set up a bulkhead mount where you can actually just fix a coax point on the outside of the vehicle and then have coax already pre-run into the vehicle. And then that way you can easily hook things up, as you need. And it's really kind of about setting that in motion now versus trying to do it in the middle of winter, because in the middle of winter, you're not going to want to be out your car making these changes, basically busting your fingers on, cold weather to try to get yourself up. So think about, changes for those types of antenna mounts, but set yourself up with some good antenna mounts and a couple different options. Try a few out. And if, they don't work, then, you can go back and reset after you've, kind of tested them out in the field a little bit. But now is probably a good time to kind of, flush that scenario out. So let's talk, other, things like batteries. Now, Shannon, what do you have for a battery when you operate in the vehicle?
I have a 100 amp hour LifePo battery.
Okay. And so you, is that like just the battery straight and you've got it power poled or something?
Yeah, I don't even have power poles. I just,
Go right to the terminals.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you've got batteries, we all know cold weather and batteries, do not leave them in your car. So don't consider a permanent battery solution if you're thinking that way, without considering, say, something like a battery heater, battery blanket, that type of stuff, because the cold will zap your battery life very quickly. And that doesn't even matter if you've got them in a nice warm vehicle, or what. The cold weather, for a period of time will deplete some of your batteries quicker than, say, summer or winter, summer or spring months, just because it's just how the chemistry works. And we all know that if you leave, most batteries that you get today, some of them do have, cold weather, or I'm trying to think of what the terminology is. It's basically cold weather shut off. So like you can't damage the battery charging or whatever if it drops below like freezing or whatever. So look for kind of batteries around that scenario. Maybe if you're so inclined, you want to get, 100 amp hour like Shannon does, try to find a battery that does, has its own built-in heater. I know Redodo's got a few out there on the market. I have one of those batteries in my battery box that I built on my channel. I actually upgraded it from the regular 100 amp hour that I bought I sold it to Grouch there and then reinvested it and got the one that actually had the built-in heater. So I could leave it in my truck overnight and it would stay warm and still be able to be maintained and whatnot. So that was kind of my scenario. I'm thinking like that. So think in those terms when you're kind of planning out your activations and planning your future, winter activations. And then from a standpoint of, let's say vehicles, obviously you're going to have to keep it running. Don't run it in the car. Or if you're going to have to run your vehicle all time, crack the windows. I can't tell you how many people forget to do the simple safety stuff by not leaving their windows a little cracked. Because, carbon monoxide is a killer. You don't want to be one of those people that they find in a park, suffering from carbon monoxide because you forgot to, you left your vehicle running the whole time you did your activation. If you can, like Shannon and I do, start your vehicle up, keep it a little warm, shut it off, activate for a little while. If you start to see the frost or whatever, and you don't want to attract weird people coming up thinking, you're doing some nefarious things in the back of your car, keep it, pretty well, equal temperatures as much as you can. Try to be smart about, what you're doing when you're trying to activate, because I think a lot of times when you do your activations, a lot of us are just so focused in the ideas of making contacts and trying to make as many contacts as we can that we forget about our surroundings and we forget, obviously the safety of ourselves and operating in and around a park that's probably doesn't have a lot of people coming by. So keep that in mind and definitely consider those factors, especially when you're activating when there's nobody else in the parking lot for sure. A little bit of safety goes a long way.
Well, to
All right.
kinda, go back to one thing that you were saying earlier about the, Support Your Parks weekend being, the 3rd weekend in October and maybe a good time to, like, try, a Rove if you've never done a Rove. So, winter actually, may be a good time to do roves because if you have a setup that you can sort of set up and take down rather quickly, or that you don't even have to take it up and down, that you just drive with it already attached to your car. You go to one park, you make your 10 contacts because, let's be real, we don't have to sit at one park for an hour and make 100 contacts, right? We only need
You
10
don't?
contacts for it to be an activation. So, you go to one park, you make your, 10, 15 contacts, whatever. You sit there and activate maybe until you get cold. And then you start
Yeah,
your
yeah.
car back up, you get your heater back going, you drive to another park, you do another activation. So
Yep.
once you get cold, you just kind of stop and you go to another park and you give yourself a chance to warm up with that heat going, right?
Yeah, good point. Yep. And along those same lines too, think about it like as you are an activator, so you have control over your activation. So it is totally fine that if you need to heat the car back up for whatever reason, to let everybody know that you're like taking a pause, and they'll just have to suck it up and deal and wait for you to get the car back up to a temperature so you can function. And don't feel like you have to get every contact because there's no contacts left behind, clause or something like that. You have control of your activation, so think in terms of that. And then take those minutes to get yourself back warm and ready, because you'll be that much better off in the long run, especially if you're looking to activate a park for a couple of hours straight, because temperatures can change and time of day can make that a whole another factor to consider too as well. I know I've done a few activations later in the day, and especially where they're we lose a lot of the sunlight earlier in the days in the winter months. Yeah, you got to kind of consider those scenarios and how you activate from your vehicle, because it's a different scenario when you're in a park where it's not super active and you're the only one there. So again, I can't stress enough comfort, but safety is a big plus, especially when you're doing that stuff here in New England, and you don't have a lot of daylight, but you still want to activate and you still want to be able to make those contacts. So anything that you kind of bring, we'll say, that's not so much ham radio specific, but are you a snacks drinks girl, where you got to have that stuff with you? You could care less, and you just got, as long as you got your coffee, you're good.
Oh yeah, no, I always have to I have to have a little something. So usually what I'll do is, like, if I'm going to go and do a pot, I'll stop at Dunkin' Donuts and I will get my iced coffee cuz I am a New England girl. So mostly I drink iced coffee year round. But then, I'll have, my egg and cheese on a bagel or something like that. So, because nothing's worse than, like, if you're hungry and you're trying to POTA, right? Because it's all about comfort.
True.
So, if I'm not 100% comfortable, then, I'm going to be a grumpy POTA activator, and nobody wants that.
You're not going to get the the accuracy and the pinpoint quickness of contacts like you normally get out of Shannon when you activate her. And it's a telltale sign for those that might be activating or trying to hunt her next time, and you find that she's just like slogging through, then tell her to stop and go get something to eat.
Yeah, like you're not yourself if you haven't had a Snickers or whatever it is.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Very much so. All right. So, any of in any of your activations that you've done winter wise, any pitfalls you run into that you kind of would share stories that we can give to those folks that are maybe considering getting into winter activations?
I mean, I can't think of, anything specific in particular, but we talked a lot about, the actual ham radio gear. You kind of talked a little bit about, your fuzzy fleece chair if you were going
Mhm.
to sit outside, you
Yep.
know. Um but, just something as simple as like dressing in layers, right? So, maybe have, maybe thermal layer, like we grew up wearing long johns. Does anybody even wear long
Yep.
johns anymore?
No.
So, you might have your long johns on, you might have a shirt over that, maybe a fleece jacket, maybe a waterproof layer on the outside.
Yep.
Keeping a hat on your head, you always have a hat on,
Mhm.
Eric, but
Yep.
most of your heat is lost through the top of your head. So, wearing something on your head. You touched on, the fingerless mitts, or even, just regular gloves, depending on what you're doing. If you need to have, your fingers free for a touch screen, although they do make touch screen gloves now.
They do. They're kind of sissy, but yeah. Just that
um,
experience.
so, things that you can take off and put on as you might be getting too hot or too cold. Keeping dry, like when you do have to get out of your car, if you do have to get out of your car to set up an antenna or something like
Didn't think
that,
about that.
you know,
Footwear
yeah,
is a big thing. Oh
like
my gosh.
having
Not
boots first.
sneakers.
Yeah, so having boots, first of all, to keep your feet warm and dry, right? But then also, like, maybe something non-slip, because you don't wanna be getting out of your car in a parking lot that, might not be de-iced, and you don't wanna slip. Safety again, fall, get wet, then you're wet, you're uncomfortable, you don't want to activate anymore.
Right. Yep. Yeah, those are all good points. I know people probably came here thinking, oh, like we're gonna talk, super, deep dives on antennas and stuff like that. But like Shannon and I agree. It's like if you're not comfortable, I don't care how good your antenna is and whether or not it's got the best cue, or or you can tune it up in 5 minutes or less. It doesn't matter if you're, you're wet, you're tired, you're hungry, and all that. The activation in my mind is just kind of, going to be one of those things that's just going to, ruin your, overall experience, because your brain's going to remember, like, I don't want to do this. This wasn't fun. Yeah, I have done, I have done a lot in Boy Scouts, growing up. And so I know not what to do when it comes to like not packing the right things, and, all of those components that you just learn along the way after you're doing several campouts. So I've applied a lot of that same kind of, thought process to my activations. And a lot of people, like, I get crap from Todd, all the time about like, oh, dude, you're so comfortable, everything's all comfortable. I'm like, dude, if I'm not comfortable, I don't care whether, we do 500 contacts or 5. It's like, I'm not going to have fun. So it's very much important, and it's a big factor for that. And I extend that into my field days too. Like a lot of the old guys are like, oh, we're just going to set it up like the old days. We're going to wheel in a tube type radio, and we're going to like, do pedal power, and not to, bash on that. But at the same time, like, I'm there all weekend. I have no desire to, have to huff it to be able to make, contact here. So all about the comfort for sure. All right. So we didn't talk so much, but I think if maybe this is your first year kind of doing POTA, and there are a few here in the chat that have alluded to that. And totally awesome, because, you're in for definitely an experience if you're going to try to do that, and you're not going to shut down the POTA machine for winter, months. What advice would you kind of give to a newcomer if they're going to get into that?
Geez, I don't know. Didn't we just give all the advice?
Yeah, but like one kind of one thing. I mean, obviously, I think comfort was obviously our big thing, but like if you were, I guess and maybe I'll start it off here. My one bit of advice to a newcomer would be like, don't go in like you normally go in during the spring and summer. Like, just like, I'm going to set everything up. I'm going to bring everything with me. I'm going to try things out. Spend a little time, and that little time will go, like it was announced. What's the rule of thumb? An ounce of prevention is, worth a pound of pain or something like that, or whatever it is. I can't remember I'll have to look it up, but whatever. The whole idea is like, take it and try it a little bit. Don't try to set a goal of like, oh, I'm going to do for a winter, my first winter activation, a rove. Like, that's a big no-no. I mean, you might, suffer from that a lot, but like, try to do a local park. Maybe if you got a park that's like 5-10 minutes away from you, give it a try. Take your setup, after you've kind of gone through some of the steps we've already given you to, kind of plan all those things out, get your, your comfort level, to a place that you're ready to go, and then just go out and try, a quick, 10 park activation, not 10 park, a 10 contact activation, no 10 park, sorry. But, start to kind of try it a little bit, and then, sit back a little bit, or maybe, and I guess this is my best advice, was do it with somebody else. Like, find another person who wants to go out and try it, and meet up with them, whether it's a middle of the day lunch, kind of activation, or, you do it on a Saturday morning, go together, operate from the same car. If that's what you're going to do, and you're not going to operate outside.
Huddle together for body warmth.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Make sure, if you've got a few friends who've got propane buddy heaters, those are perfectly fine to bring. I've been on outdoor winter activations where the buddy heater literally, like, this far away from you, and you're like, this is great. Meanwhile the plastic on your jacket's probably catching fire, kind of thing. But it is try it with somebody else, and that way you both can kind of will circle back and do a little root cause analysis, like what do we need to fix, how do I need to get things better, and try it out, but learn that this is kind of one of those things that you're both practicing emergency wise, and we didn't kind of allude to that, but like when you're in the winter kind of scenario and you're out doing POTA activations, you are practicing for emergency situations. Like, I mean, around here in New England, we got ice storms, we lose the loss of power. There are things where we have to deal with that we could be an asset more than a hindrance when those emergencies do strike. So think in in that sense that you're trying to improve both your emergency preparedness and radio communications, and that you're just being smarter and preparing yourself for kind of all scenarios. So I guess that would be my one thing I would throw out to newcomers. Like, think in those terms, and you'll be okay. All right. Anything else we kind of didn't touch upon? I think we probably covered anything. Anybody in the chat want to throw in a few things here? Yeah.
Yeah, so Ted did say, advice, don't procrastinate. It isn't about getting the perfect kit. Get out there and activate what you have. And so that's, that would probably be part of like my bit of advice, is that, remember, guys, like, yes, we are, as POTA activators, it is sort of about, practicing our skills and setting up a portable station in case of emergency, right? But this is also a hobby, and it's supposed to be fun. It's not a job. So, like, if you don't want to go, like, just don't go. Don't do it. If
don't feel guilted
like,
either.
If you're going to be freezing your tail off and miserable, then you know what? Stay home and watch some ham radio YouTube if you need to get your ham radio
preferably
fixed, right?
either Shannon or my channel, and remember
Or,
the spring and summer months.
Or like we said, those who can't activate, hunt. So, hunt POTA parks from home if you can, or get on a remote and use a remote radio if you don't have one, at your house. A lot of clubs have remote radios available.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of folks. Same thing. It seems comfort is the one of the major top 3 factors in all of your activations, whether it's fair weather or winter months. And yeah, Sean, I agree. Simple, like Ted said, is always a better way than trying to make it more complex. And you will definitely learn more in that sense. So. Procrastinating. Yes. What is that word? I can't spell it. So, cool. We got Hef in there. Good to see you guys. There's a lot of conversation going on. I appreciate you guys. It's awesome to see you guys here on a Friday morning. I'm so glad nobody's doing work at this moment. It's awesome that you're on the show here, hanging out with us. Because, Shannon and I, if we're not, here, we're busy doing life, and if we're not doing life, we're doing POTA. So, hopefully we'll entice you guys this weekend to get out there and play. The bands have been pretty good. I was talking with Todd yesterday. He was out on the coast, and he pulled 85 contacts off of 10 and 20. A lot of DX for him, and so he was quite happy. I think he said he got Alaska, although it wasn't a POTA park, so it's just what it is. It was good to kind of touch upon this. So we're going to say, and I'm going to throw this out here. We have, like I said, over on our Discord, we have this discussion going on. We're going to, share more of this stuff. Also, I want to throw out from last week's episode live stream. We have created a page over at N1JUR. If you head over our Discord, the link's there. I don't have the link handy with me right now. But if you head over to our Discord, there is a challenge page that I've created for all the folks for their bucket list. And so we're calling this the 2025, 2026 bucket list options, and it mainly around POTA. So if you've got stuff that you want to, share with us about what you're trying to do, and this could be everything related to park activations, setting up your equipment, and everything in between. Share that list with us, and I'll get it posted up on our page. And I'm hoping, as we continue to add to this, that along the way we'll kind of maybe get more people involved, but more so that we can challenge each other, because I think that adds to the funness of it. Because like I tend, and I know Shannon alluded to earlier, she doesn't really have a list. She just kind of goes with the wind. I'm more of like, hey, I like shooting for goals, helps me feel to get to a better place, and helps me continue to move further and forward in the hobby. Let's share each other's goals and aspirations and POTA, and see if we can encourage one another. And I would love, as we kind of develop this, to maybe make it into a challenge. I don't know. We'll kind of see where it goes with this one, but the idea is just to continue to share and encourage and support one another in the POTA hobby. So feel free to send that stuff over, post it on the Discord. On our Discord, there is a link there. And so if you need to get access to that link and you're not part of the Live Free and Hem Discord, there is a link in the description as always, and you can head over there and come join us in the conversation. All right. So I think we covered a pretty good amount, right? Did we? I don't think we missed anything, did we?
No, I think we did pretty well. One thing I did want to throw out there is that Support Your Parks weekend, which is the third weekend in October, right? So it's the 18th and the 19th, is also the weekend of Jamboree on the Air. Eric, being a scout guy, do you know about Jamboree on the Air?
No, nope. I
Really?
did not. I'm not involved in scouting per se. After I got my Eagle, I got out pretty quickly. But there's a long story to that, and I won't get into it today. But all that being said, I have not. There are a few people in our club, my local club, that are into scouting and stuff, but I have not spent enough time in there, and focusing on it. But sounds, do you have more information or no?
Yeah, so Jamboree on the Air is like a very, very old scouting tradition for scouts to actually get on the air and make contact with other scouts across the nation and around the world. So if people don't know about it, I can probably drop a link here from scouting.org. And maybe Joda/Jody info, because I think they have a Jamboree on the internet as well.
Okay.
But so if you have kids and they're in scouting, or even if you don't have kids, and you want to maybe make some kids day and make contacts with them, be looking for them on the air also on Support Your Parks weekend. Or maybe get in touch with a local scout troop and see if they might be interested in in getting on the air with at a POTA park.
Yeah, definitely. I know they use a couple of specific, like it's JOTAs in their call sign, or they have a couple of specific call signs, don't they? If I remember right.
Nope.
No,
They're
don't?
I mean,
I thought it was like BSA 1 or something like that. Maybe it was.
I think somebody has that as a call sign, like, permanently.
Okay.
But obviously, like, unfortunately in the US, our vanity call sign system does not allow for the long vanity call signs like you can get in Great Britain. They'll give you, like, GB1 JOTA probably if you wanted it, if somebody else doesn't have it. But here we can only get, like the WT2M, we can only get the one by
Oh, yeah.
the one by ones here, which is
Yeah,
a
I don't
little
think they.
disappointing.
Although I thought, yeah, I'll have to go back and do a little. We'll do a little digging on that one because I think, yeah, Shannon hit it on the head. Kids, and actually Sean even said it. Yeah, kids are great to hear on the air, and it's always awesome to have more youth, getting out there and making contacts. So yeah, if you hear them out there, like Shannon said, make contact with them, get them in the log, say hello, and continue to support them.
Yeah,
And
I'll do a little bit more digging and I'll post some links probably in the Live Free and Ham Discord because I know they usually have recommended frequencies for you to be on. And then I did actually see, because the RSGB posted about it, because it is international. I believe that next weekend at the same time is also a Worked All Germany contest. So they were trying to give some recommendations on frequencies that would not interfere with the Worked All Germany contest. So it sounds like next week is going to be a busy weekend on the radio for sure.
And knock on wood, as long as the stupid coronal holes and all of the other stuff that's been happening with the big old angry sun in the sky, hopefully it'll be a good weekend for sure. So, and I actually found the link here just so those that want to do the POTA bucket list. There's the link there in the chat. You can head over to my page. There's a quick form to fill in if you want to throw in your own list there, and I'll get that posted, and we'll keep adding to that. So yeah, cool. And heck, if you guys got other POTA related events, and this is kind of one of those things that we like to share here on Brew and Activate. If you've got events coming up or whatever, just email me, hit up Shannon, either way. Let us know, and we'd love to share if you've got some meetups going on, or you're doing some type of POTA event, or you got a story or two you want to share with us. We either love to have you on, or we'll totally be happy to share that with everybody here and continue to support everybody out there doing the POTA work, as they say. So very cool. All right. Well, with that, let's kind of put a little wrap up here. Thanks again for everybody there in the chat for hanging out. It was good to see all the names and faces this morning. I know Fridays is obviously a work day for a lot of folks, but it's good to see you guys here, and hopefully we started your Friday off and kick the weekend off, and hopefully we'll get you excited to get out there and do more activations and make some noise on the bands. And so with that, if you haven't, make sure you definitely like and subscribe both Shannon and I's page. Shannon, if you've got your actually, I can just grab it here real quick. I should have just done this myself. We'll throw in obviously you've come to my channel if you haven't already. Let me grab you want to post your YouTube link there in the chat so I don't have to sit here and type while I'm trying to talk, because I can't do both. We'll throw Shannon's link in there. But yeah, definitely head over, subscribe to Shannon's channel. She's definitely doing more stuff, slowly but surely. We'll eventually get her into the loop, and, we'll start to see, more activations going forward. And so with that, make sure you subscribe, like to both of our channels here. And as always, we love to support our fellow POTA enthusiasts. And you can do that by obviously heading over to our Discord, and that Discord link is in the show notes description down below. We always have a great chat discussion going on over there. And as always, again, so to help the channel here, make sure you check out our sponsors, Reliance Antenna, Mad Dog, and Spool. Tenna, all those guys support us, and they offer some really good discounts to their antennas. So if you're looking to pick up some good stuff, heck, I was just talking offline with Shannon about the Mad Dog. You can't go wrong with these things. I love these verticals. You can get a couple of good deals on that too as well, and help support some great antenna companies. So with that, we gather here every Friday morning now. Now this is our new home here. Friday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I know it's a little early for our West Coaster folks, but I know you can do it. You can turn us on while you're getting ready in the morning. And we'll be glad to have you become part of the channel. And with that, until next time, keep those radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on, my friends.
POTA on,
7-3.
guys. Bye. 7-3.